Good morning, students. Welcome to Good Samaritan School, Jesola online classes. In the last classes, we discussed about how acid react with metal oxides and how base react with non-metallic oxides. And also we discussed some of the questions given on page number 22. And I told you to write down these questions, 3 questions in your copy. And I hope you all did. And those who haven't finished, please do it soon. Okay. Today, the topic we are going to discuss is what do all acids and all bases have in common? What they have in common? We should know one very important thing about an acid and a base. And we already did an experiment and an activity about acids and base, that when acid react with metal or when a base react with a metal, they give salt with hydrogen gas, right? You see that acids generate hydrogen gas on reacting with metals. So hydrogen seems to be a common to all acids, right? So hydrogen, it is the only thing which is common to all acids. Okay, if a hydrogen is common to acid, then what is common for base? Okay, so these two things we are going to discuss now. When we talk about a base, when base react, or you have already learned, and we have already learned that when all base can they do not dissolve in water, right? When base reacts or dissolves in water, they become alkalis, right? It gives OH negative ions. So what we learned from that is when base react or dissolves in water, they become alkalis. What happened when the base they do not dissolve in water? They are not said to be alkalis. So these things also we have learned in the last topic, and if you have any further clarification, you can go to that video and just look at it again. Okay, today the activity 2.8 we are going to learn. What is this activity talks about? We talk about this when all acids and bases they conduct electricity. Take an example. Look at this activity. This activity is given in your book also. We should take a beaker and add some acid, or you can add an acid or base or a glucose or alcohol, any kind of solution, but one by one. Okay, so first I have added acid into it. Okay, I have added an acid. It's a dilute hydrochloric acid. Once I added acid, what I did, I put some 2 nails in a rubber cock, 2 nails, and these nails are dipped inside the solution, and these 2 nails are connected with a battery. It's our cell which is having positive and negative. Bulb is there and the key is connected. So once the key is put inside, what happens? I saw that bulb glows. Why and what is the reason the bulb is glowing? The reason is the glowing of bulb indicates the flowing of electric current. So once the electric current are flowing from this area to that area, that means from this nail to this nail, then only the bulb is glowing. Okay, so what we learned from this, what we understand from this, we understood that hydrochloric acid, that means an acid, they conduct electricity. Okay, what you do, take out this hydrochloric acid from this and then clean it properly, and then now add a base, any base. You can add a sodium hydroxide or potassium hydroxide, whatever base it is. Once we add a base, again do the same setup, you can find the bulb again started glowing. What do we learn from that? We learn that base also conduct electricity. Okay, so what you do, again throw out the solution and replace the solution with alcohol or glucose. What do you find? Will you see the bulb started glowing? No, you cannot see the bulb is glowing. This is what given in your book. You can just look at here. We observe that glucose and alcohol solutions do not conduct electricity, but with the acid and a base, yes, the bulb is glowing. That means they conduct electricity. So the glowing of bulb indicates that there is a flow of electric current through the solution. The electric current is carried through the solution by ions. What are ions? Yes, ions are classified into two different types. One is cations and anions. Cations, we know that it is positive in nature and anions are negative in nature. Yes, once the acid or a base, they put it inside the solution, they diffuses or dissociates into these two ions. Take an example, if I take an hydrochloric acid, when we put this hydrochloric acid in a water, it becomes H3O plus ion and chlorine ions. And how this happens? We know that H plus is present only in the acids. When H plus is mixed with the water, H2O, it gives hydronium ion. Now that another word I can say the hydrochloric acid, when it dissociates or dissolves in water, it gives H plus and Cl minus ions. That means they diffuses themselves into ions. What about base? Base also do the same. When sodium hydroxide, if it is a solid substance, sodium hydroxide pellets, put it inside the water, they become sodium plus, that is Na plus and OH negative ions. So always acids gives H plus ions and base they give OH negative ions. So acid generates H plus ions in an aqueous solution and base generate OH negative ions in an aqueous solution. So this is what we learned from this activity. Okay, let's move on to this and we learn more about what is actually given here. Since the cation present in acids is H plus, this suggests that acid produce hydrogen ion, that is H plus aqueous in a solution, which are responsible for their acidic property. If you start repeating the same activity using alkalis, you should know what is alkalis. All bases are not alkalis. You should know one very important thing. We already discussed about this, but you should not forget about the difference between the base and alkalis. All bases are not alkalis, but all alkalis are base. Why all bases are not alkalis? Because all bases do not dissolve in water. So only base which dissolves in water, they are all said to be, yes, alkalis. Some examples you can see sodium hydroxide or calcium hydroxide. When these two things mixed with water, they conduct electricity because they diffuses themselves into these ions Na plus and OH negative ion, and always base produce OH negative ions. And we may have a question that why glucose or alcohol, they are not conduct any electricity in the water. Why they are not conducting electricity? To find the answer for that, we are going to do a simple illustration or a demonstration here to understand why ionic compounds are conducting electricity, but covalent compounds, they are not conducting electricity. Okay, maybe the word covalent is new for you. Ionic compounds are nothing but they are the mixture of positive and negative ions. For example, all acids, base and salts are all ionic compounds. That means they consist of a positive and a negative ion. Positive and negative ion. In other words, it is a mixture of metals and non-metals. But when you talk about covalent compounds, all are non-metals, only non-metals present in that. So, if I want to explain more on ionic compound and covalent compound, ionic compound, they combine themselves by giving and gaining property. That means one metals have a property of giving out an electron, or in other words losing of electron, and non-metals, they have a tendency to gain an electron. So, metals lose electron, that means it gives an electron to a non-metal and non-metal receives an electron from a metal. So, there is a bond formed between these two, and that bond is an ionic bond. But covalent bonds, it not happen like that, because they never give and never gain. So, what they do, they share their electron. That means you will also give and I too give. So, there is a sharing takes place between these two, yes, atoms. So, in other word, they are covalent bonds. Okay, let us learn how this happens. If I told you that acids, base and salts are all forming an ionic compound, I am going to take an example of a sodium chloride, which is a crystal. We all know that it is used in our home, a common salt. If you think of sodium chloride crystal, one crystal, actually the shape looks like this. That means sodium, that is Na plus, all the red marks are all sodium and all these blue are all chlorine, Cl minus. Okay, this is a simple small sodium crystal. Okay, think like that. And sodium chlorine, sodium chloride. So, it is combined with a ionic bond. That means a bond formed between them is an ionic bond. But what about the covalent compounds? Here alcohol, sugars are all they are all an organic compound which they have only non-metals combined with them. So, I am going to take an example of sugar. You all know the formula of sugar. In photosynthesis, we learned about yes, carbohydrate, the sugar formula C6H12O6, formula of sugar, and they consist of carbon, hydrogen and oxygen. Carbon, hydrogen and oxygen. All these green are carbon and hydrogen are red and oxygen are blue. So, but this formula is little bigger, so I made it short. So, I just divided by 3. So, it comes the formula as C2H4O6. So, it made a small one, small formula. Okay. So, just for our understanding, I made a structure of this sugar molecule, a simple very small structure, and the structure also I have written here, C2H4 and O2. Okay. So, now what happened? Well, let us see. If I take one ionic compound like a sugar or the salt or a base or an acid, they all have positive as well as negative ions. So, what happened? I am taking this sodium chloride and put it inside the solution. If I am going to dissolve this sodium chloride in a solution of water, now what happens? Once I put it inside this, all these sodium molecules, this separates. And also all chlorine molecules will also be separated. You see how they are separated? You see, before that it is a crystal, right, a small crystal, but once I put it inside the solution, they all separated like this. So they form ions, that means Na plus separately and Cl minus separately. This is how they separates. And definitely if these two ions are separated, they easily conduct the electricity. But in case of a sugar molecule, if I this is one sugar molecule, okay, like that we have many sugar molecules. So I am putting this sugar molecules inside the water solution, water molecules. So what happens? It doesn't form the structure like a carbon separately, hydrogen separately, or oxygen separately. They never form like that. They never do like that. So what they do, they will be separated like this. And this is the formula, this is a structure of one sugar molecule. Once a sugar or an alcohol is just added into that water, they form molecules. So it looks like this. So once they added into the water, they form molecules. They never, many are thinking that they are separated like carbon separately, hydrogen separately, and oxygen separately. It never happens. It happens like they are separated as molecules, just like that, right? So that is the reason, because they cannot diffuse themselves into ions, so they cannot conduct electricity. Hope you all understand this, student. Um, and this is what we should learn from this, this from the solution, or from this topic. What do all acids and bases have common? So we have learned one thing, that what is the main thing common with acids and base? Acids, they generate H plus ions, and bases, they generate OH negative ions. And the hydrogen seems to be the common to all acids, and bases, it's a OH negative ions. So you should have a clear understanding on this topic, because sometimes 1 mark questions can also be asked in this topic, right? And the 2 mark question also be asked from this topic. So what you do, you have to go through this from page number 22 and to 23, from 2.2 to here, up to here. You just go through here, read this topic completely, and try to keep this also in your mind, so that you will understand that how an ionic compound dissolves in a water, and how the covalent compounds dissolves, and you should know the difference, why they conduct electricity and why they are not conducting electricity. Clear? And if you have any doubts in this topic, please ask through WhatsApp, and stay safe and complete your work, and whatever doubts you have, please do ask through WhatsApp number. Thank you, student. Have a nice day.